We begin with, I believe, let's begin with the Daily Nation. And the top story on the Daily Nation says things fall apart. And of course, challenges just over 2 years into his tenure. President William Ruto is confronted with major crises affecting key sectors, with the 47 counties threatening to shut down their operations, citing a cash crunch. Now, critical sectors of education and healthcare are also in limbo following an unending lecturer strike that has paralyzed learning in public universities, as well as the chaos in the new Social Health Authority that has left patients stranded in hospitals. This is a story on pages 4, 5, and 6 of the Daily Nation. Of course, you can grab this particular copy and get a look at that as we look forward to the scorecard of President William Ruto, which is expected to deliver to deliver the State of the Nation address tomorrow to outline his administration's successes and plans. And we here at K24, of course, will be following up on that and bringing you up to speed as far as that is concerned. On that same things fall apart. Of course, we have issues to do with the county cash crisis as Treasury rules out extra 20 billion as governors threaten a shutdown. And of course, this has been a subject of conversation for the better part of the past 2 months. Ever since the fall of the Finance Bill 2024, there's been proposals to reduce the budget allocated to counties by 20 billion shillings from what it was, which was 400 billion shillings. And of course, the 20 billion shillings is also short, 5 billion shillings short of what had initially been allocated in the previous financial year, and that was 385 billion shillings, a subject that has been a conversation matter in the country, with the county saying this is not practical, and also the senators refusing to budge when it comes to this particular matter. It has been a stalemate between the two mediation teams, that is in the National Assembly and also the Senate. There's also something else to look at, and that is the university stalemate, where the lecturer strike hits learning amid of a new funding model. Of course, issues to do with the funding model has been a subject of debate in the country. This is also a story and also something that this head of state is expected to be looking at in his State of the Nation address tomorrow. As far as healthcare is concerned, they call it a healthcare mess. Chief Shah teething problems persist a month after rollout. And of course, I remember on this one, we also have the acting CEO of this particular institution, who had been sent on compulsory leave for 90 days to allow investigations into mismanagement of funds at that particular institution to continue. And also, we have, as matters education is concerned, with this particular newspaper, Moi University inside multi-million shilling deals that anti-graft agency is investigating. And top officials at Moi University have been summoned for questioning today by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission detectives over alleged embezzlement of 2.2 billion through fraudulent infrastructure projects. Now, the senior officials on the radar of the EACC include Vice Chancellor Isaac Oskei, Chief Accountant Egla Samoei, Head of Procurement of Development. They are to present themselves for questioning at the Commission's Eldoret office. Ruto reads the Riot Act to his ministers and PSS. Now, President William Ruto makes his remarks during the signing of performance contracts by cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, and senior government officials yesterday at State House, Nairobi. Dr. Ruto directed them to deliver on their mandate without delays and excuses. Of course, the photo of the head of state during that particular event. On matters politics, the Daily Nation is reporting that Gachagua allies are avoiding all-out war against Kindiki. Now, camp of impeached DP has made a tactical retreat to sever the backing of the people that they enjoy. This is a story on page 8 of the Daily Nation. Of course, matters athletics. We have a story on page 29. Of course, you can grab this particular copy and get to look at that. At the back page of this particular newspaper, of course, it's the issue to do with the billion shilling deal CSCC is probing at Moi University. That is also a story that is appearing on the top page of this particular newspaper. Let's take a look at what's happening on the Standard. And the Standard is reporting no holds barred telling truth to power. Nairobi Archbishop Philip Anyolo's rejection of more than 5 million President William Ruto donated to the Soweto Catholic Church did not surprise those who know him. He once rejected a 4 million car gift from Ruto because he did not know the motive. His smile and calm nature had the character of a tough cleric guided by principle. This is a story on page 4 to page 5 of the Standard. Of course, I do want to just quote that. The church is called to uphold integrity by refusing contributions that may inadvertently compromise its independence or facilitate unjust enrichment. Political leaders are urged to demonstrate ethical leadership by addressing the pressing issues raised. And of course, a story on the top page of the Standard. Also on the Standard, it is learners stare at a bleak future as strike rages on. A story on page 3 on matters business. State promises 21,000 new overseas jobs. A story on page 20. And Ukraine firm in face of Russian nuclear threat. A story on page 22. Rwanda's heartbreak despite win. Matters sports. Story on page 32. Matters national. Ruto to cabinet deliver or pack your bags and go. While President William Ruto yesterday warned ineffective members of his cabinet of sanctions should they fail to meet expectations of Kenyans. And Matters National, of course, also amend tax bill to tame living cost. Kenyans voiced their reservations on the bill during public participation. They ask MPs to lower taxes that will help reduce cost of living amid concern high taxation in spiraling out of control. Right, that is the Standard. I believe we also have the People Daily. Let's take a look at what you're waking up to as far as the People Daily is concerned. Why bishops rejected Ruto cash, of course, that's the top story on page on the People Daily. And of course, it says clergy say donation contravened fundraising law and was a way of buying power. This is a story on page 4. And a story on page 3 of the People Daily, how presidents failed promises are haunting him. Story on page 3 of this particular newspaper. And also top of the People Daily, we do have Gachagua purge claims fast casualty. Of course, we have run that particular story here at K24, where the first casualty was actually a senator at the National Assembly who was the chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission. And of course, yes, that is a story on page 5 of the People Daily. That is what you're waking up to as far as newspapers are concerned here in the country. Of course, I do want to introduce my guest here on set. Hello. Honorable Lady Justice Lucy Mbugua, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Moy.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if you're allowed to comment on national matters, are you?
Let me talk about judiciary.
Yeah.
Particularly our court,
okay,
the Environment and Land Court.
All right, well noted. Yes. Talking about Environment and Land Court, before we get into that conversation, I want you to get a sentiment on a story that we ran here today, and that has to do with the demolitions that were happening at Woodley. Yes. Some people say it's been 50 years since, we've been living here for 50 years, and of course they have to, move to pave way for the construction of the affordable housing project. So, at the end of the day, if somebody who I don't know how you look at it, but who would claim to have ownership of that particular land?
I don't have the full particulars. It's also not very good to comment on the live cases because I know the cases are in court, but some have been finalized. Okay. What I would say is that when it comes to such demolitions, what you look is whether people are given sufficient notice, whether there was public participation. If there was public participation, was it meaningful? You look at many things. There are many factors to consider. You also look at the tenure system. What is the bundle of rights and interest that people are holding in that particular land for that kind of thing to happen? Is it that there could be other factors like people are in danger, like for instance during the flooding thing that was occurring? So there are very many considerations to take into account.
Okay, because the issue of demolitions in the country has been a subject of conversation most of the time. And every time we cover these particular stories, we always get to hear people say, I don't know any other home. I've been here for the longest of time. So if you're taking me out of this particular place, where exactly do you want me to go? And I don't know, but just in general, without touching on specificity, to what extent will somebody, you know, live at a particular place and say, now, maybe when it comes to matters legality, I am rightfully to belong in this particular area? And at what extent will the government come out and say, now, of course, yes, you've been living here, but this is government land? I don't, what's the disconnect there?
What happens is that in terms of our constitution, we have 3 categories of land holding. We have the public land, we have the community land, we have the private land. So at any given moment, where you are, you have to identify that land is in which category. Is it private land? Is it government land? Is it community land? Such that if it's not private land, and it is, then it is community land or public land, you have to, on what basis are you on that land? Are you a tenant of the government? Are you an invader? Have you been a licensee on that land? Because you can be on that public land legally. For instance, if you have been given a license, those ones, some are called the TOLs, temporary occupation licenses, some are invasions. So it depends on the kind of interest you have in that land you hold. It may not be an absolute. Certainly if you are on public land or community land, it may not be an absolute right. You know, the absolute right of proprietorship, where you hold a leasehold or a title interest in that land.
Okay. Now, we'll be getting into the details so far. Sometimes somebody has a title deed and they are able to present it, and yet they are evicted because somebody else has another title deed. But help me understand the difference when it comes to what you're talking about, public land, private land, and community land. Where do we draw the difference on this one, and how do people get to understand that the land that I'm actually residing on, this is not, this is either community or public, or you know, or private?
What you check is the history. What is the history of that land? Okay. Take, for instance, if you are in outer places outside Nairobi, let's say, for instance, if you are in somewhere near Masai Mara, that could be community land. And you know it, you have been living there, you know that you are a community, you hold this land, you don't have a title, but you know the land does not belong to the government. It belongs to your ancestors. So the holding, it's called the customary holding. The interest is you hold that land together as a community. So even you yourselves, you know it. Okay. If
do we have a title deed to that land as a community, or we just know that we belong to this particular?
The titles, sometimes they have not been there. Some are just there. So what happens is that there are processes called the adjudication processes, such that the community or customary rights transition to individual ownership. So you get your own title piece of land. Okay. So some places the process has been slow, but it's ongoing. Others, that process of adjudication took place a long time ago. There are places where that transition or that holding from now without title to title, it doesn't follow that it will transition to individual rights of ownership. All right. You will still get a title as a community. So the rights of the communities are registered and you get a title as a community. So
nobody can become selfish amongst that particular community and say, I want a title deed as an individual when it comes to this particular land.
You know now those communities where they hold the land as a community, they know that is their way of living, That is how they hold land. I'm talking about places like Maasai land, northeastern, where you sometimes you even move with seasons. You relocate to other places for looking for green grass, but this is our land. Generations know this is our land. So now what is happening is that those communities are getting titles through a statute or a law known as the Community Lands Act.
Okay. How safe are people who occupy land as a community from encroachment and land grabbing from other people who maybe know the system too well? Somebody will go ahead and fabricate some title deed and now start constructing an apartment or a house or a company somewhere, disenfranchising that particular community living in that particular area.
I believe it's possible. For instance, where the community land has precious resources. It can be minerals, it can be forests, it can be, what can I say, even water, like a lot of water. So the wise people in the community, the ones who are, they have more knowledge, they can lease this land to multinationals for farming, for mining, for even this, what we are going to learn during our conference, carbon trading. And the community members may not understand what is happening. They trust their leaders. I cannot say that I know a specific community which is doing that, but I can tell you this is possible, this can happen. So it's possible for the community to be disenfranchised. And they may lose their resources through lack of knowledge. And that is why we are holding this conference in Eldoret, just to bring more awareness to the communities. You can see we are not holding it in Nairobi. We don't want to be in the city. So we want to be in a place where people are relaxed, where the members of the public can be able to ask us any question. So that we bring awareness about these things like what you are asking me. Yes. All
right, because there are those particular cases where you find there's a company that has moved to a particular locality, and members of that particular community always raises issues in terms of this was our land, how exactly did you acquire this? And people have title deeds. They come to you, they say, okay, we have the legitimate title deed, but the community now says they might not have a title deed, but they do know and understand that this is exactly where they've been raised all along. So what happens in that particular case? Because I believe that has been something that has been happening for quite a while.
Yeah, it is possible for that to happen. As I have said, for community land to transition to private land, it's a whole process known as adjudication. And as I have said, it's not every member in the community who will be leading the process of determining those rights. So they are the community leaders or the family members who are identified by the families to spearhead the process. But they may be rogue. So they can sell the family land and the person gets a title. The person goes and processes the documents and the title comes in the names of strangers. But the stranger has not come into the land. So the community members still remain on the land, but after some years they realize they no longer own the land. It can happen.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about, we'll talk extensively, but just, this is just touching base on the issue to do with community land. For example, talking about ancestry, and we say family has different siblings and cousins together. The grandfather had a plot of land that was very vast and, had a title deed, but that is just one. Then comes in terms of allocation, gives me my part, Kasavuli gets her part, and, my other siblings get their part and all that. Then we don't have, do I now go ahead and start looking for a title deed for the piece of land that I've been given, or I can still stay on that particular land with the title deed that initially was there with my ancestors, and that is probably my great-great-grandfather?
If you got that land from your grandfather, but the title is not in your name, it is in the name of your grandfather. So two processes can happen. You get that land through succession. Inaitwa urithi.
Yeah.
So you do the succession course for the people who are supposed to inherit that land to get that land. So you go to the family division of the High Court for succession. On the other hand, you may not be claiming that land through succession. You claim through, now it's our ancestral land. So you claim that land through what we call customary trust. So that one you go to the Environment and Land Court and you file a claim based on customary trust. So you say, I'm entitled to that land through my ancestral roots. And that is, if the court finds that you belong to that family, you are associated with that family, you even live on that land. There is even, you can even see the divisions.
Yeah.
Those people make on land when they are dividing their own portions. They have particular trees they use.
Yeah. And sometimes somebody moves that particular demarcation. Wow.
Yes, yes. But now in the village, it's known, if the court visits the site, you can even see the demarcation. This man has always lived there. He has even buried some family members on that land. So the customary claim is proved, and you get the land through that process.
Okay. So we've talked about the community land. Does this what we're talking about fall under private or still community?
If it has a title, if like the way you're saying it's your grandfather's title, if he has a title, it had already transitioned. It's now private land.
It is now private land.
Private land. Okay. Yes.
So where do we now, identify as public land?
For public land, it's that which is neither private land. Now we have said private land is that where now you own as an individual.
Okay.
And it's not community land. So that other land which is out there, it is public land.
It is public land.
Yes.
Because we've been able to cover stories, and covering these stories helps me now ask you a lot of questions. Because you see, there's a field kids are playing in, a community maybe here in Nairobi, an estate. People come out and say, okay, somebody's trying to grab public land. This is a field where kids are supposed to be playing. Our kids do not have a place to play. Public land belongs to the public or belongs to the government?
We can say it belongs to the government because it can't just remain there. So the scenario you are giving us on a Nairobi scenario where an estate has a portion of land that is identified as public land where the children play. That scenario is, it happens, it is there because when somebody is dividing their land, for these big chunks of land, in order to bring up developments, the various units of houses, usually one was required to forfeit a portion of land to the public. You surrender a portion of the land to the public. So that portion that is surrendered, it's public land. And it's up to the government to know what to do with it. But usually during the surrender of that public land, the land will be identified. It will be for which purpose? It can be for setting up a public utility. So then the people who are involved in that whole process, they know that that land is for that particular public utility. But what we say vitu kwa ground, vitu kwa ground, what happens is that that land within no time, it just disappears into private and it reverts to private. Yes. Okay,
so in that particular case, then if the government decides to take that land and construct something, that's totally okay.
That is totally okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Despite denying us an opportunity to have our kids play on the ground, fine. Okay, we'll get into that later on. We want to take a break here on the show. When we come back, of course, we'll be getting deeper into what the environment and lands court actually do, and this particular event that is coming, and also issues to do with climate justice. How exactly are those sought, and what responsibility do they have as far as this is concerned? I was speaking to Honorable Lady Justice Lusimbugwa on this particular matter that has to do with the environment and land here in the country. Of course, we take a break. We will be back in a few. Continue engaging us on our socials at K24 across social media platforms. We'll be sampling your feedback as we continue with the program this morning.